So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about something called the science of business. You know, there's art and then there's science. Art obviously is more creative, and it's where you bring all of your innovations, your ideas, your obviously creativity. It's kind of like how you express yourself, you know? So think of like an artist, like a musician or something, where they look to business and go, this is a great vehicle for me to create the things I want to create, and that's all I want to do. I just want to make money doing what I love and what I'm passionate about, and I'm going to do it in a way that's artistic and kind of true to me. So that's one way to think of it. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the science of business. Uh, this is a little bit more of an engineered, I think, left brain. I think that's the engineering side. Left brain way of looking at business, which is the vehicle of business is actually one that's very prescriptive, very much experimenting with pragmatic ideas, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. And, as I'm talking to you about this, I'm going to show you how to engage with the science side of business, an experimentation phase, and sort of a more linear journey in order to create great wealth and to be incentivized for your expertise so you can keep doing what you love. The other caveat I'll say here is this video won't work unless you're an expert at what you do. So if you're just like some maybe inexperienced person who doesn't have much experience over any particular domain, like you're not really good at anything, or you're not like an expert at something, then this video won't work. I'm presupposing that you are an expert or a master at your craft. It'll really go well for you if you're like the top 1% in the world at something that you do. Okay? So maybe you're like a master architect, or you're a master craftsperson, or maybe you're the best in the world at editorial cartoons, or something like this. Like you're an expert basically, like the top 1%. Then I believe this will help you quite a bit. The other caveat I'll give before I go into the science of business is this pathway to wealth is that I will lay out for you will most likely be a 5-year journey. So if this is like a quick win video, or you just want to make some money really quickly, just go watch some other person to tell you that. This is more like how do you build generational wealth through the science of business if you're an expert and you want to understand the scientific side of business. All right? So I want you to think about business as both a linear journey that you kind of go through, as well as different portals that you will go through at any certain time and at any certain phase. So I think of some organizations like AA or NA. They have like the 12-step program. That's a linear progression that you go through. Okay? However, if you have any experience in AA or NA, you'll also know that this 12-step program is not only a linear journey, it is also these 12 things that you engage with at any certain time. They're sort of like your lifelines as you go through your recovery process. And then if you think of like in a more religious setting, in like a Catholic or Orthodox setting, there's like the sacraments, right? There's the 7 sacraments. These things, there's a linear progression to them. You do this first and this first and this first. But if you're a practicing religious person in that world, you'll also know that you don't ever move away from them. You kind of engage back into them as they are medicine and an infusion of grace into your life. In a more Protestant setting, you see things as the 2 sacraments or ordinances, and there's one that you do first and then the other, but you constantly engage with one of them, right? So all you need to understand basically is just that there's a linear progression, and that this linear progression is not something that is exhausted through a linear progression, is also access points for you to engage again at any sort of phase in your life. You will constantly be going through this linear journey, okay? So I'll propose 7 sacraments to the science of business here, or should I say the 7 sort of buckets here, okay? So each one of these 7 things has a particular skill set that is attached to it, right? So the first 7 are just kind of concepts or phases that you're going to be in, attached to certain time frames. Each one of these 7 things has particular hard business skills attached to it that you will learn through each one of these processes, okay? So here are the 7, okay? The first is something called unlearn, okay? Unlearn is the first move through the science of business. And the hard business skill that is attached to unlearn is thinking, how to think, okay? So what is unlearn and what is how to think as you're trying to create expert-centered generational wealth through the science of business? Well, everybody comes sort of pre-packaged with certain frameworks, certain ideas, certain lived experience, education, whatever it may be, okay? And there's kind of 2 categories where I think people live in. They're either living in the sort of, they're consuming, they're just reading books, and they go to university, they get an MBA, all this stuff, and they're consuming, and they develop an external operating system that gets them pretty far in life, and they use those things that they've learned as useful and helpful tools moving forward, okay? The other sort of container, I think of people more like street skills. They've like built businesses, sold businesses, they've been through a lot of life. Maybe they're a little bit more unconventional in how they learn and how they approach the world. Either way, both are leveraging certain preconceived ideas from the past. So existing frameworks that have been useful for the past, right? So an example of this might be, well, I got an MBA and they taught me these things at MBA, so therefore this decision that I'm making now with my business that I want to make today, I'm going to be looking back at what I learned at the MBA in order to make a correct decision, okay? Another example of this might be, well, I sold a business before and I learned my lesson one time and I don't need to learn it again. I'm going to leverage that experience in order to make the correct decision whether or not I want to partner with this person moving forward, okay? This is just examples of some things that were pre-packaged or pre-programmed to bring to business, okay? So the science of business with this idea of unlearn and the idea of thinking is that I propose that you would do is to recognize that all of these pre-packaged ideas, though they are useful, though they have gotten you to where they are now, they will not be helpful for you moving forward. Why? Generally speaking, I would argue that most of those preconceived ideas that you bring to the table when you're trying to make massive moves in your business through this sort of scientific way of looking at it, I would propose that they most likely were built around fear-based operating systems. Okay, what do I mean by fear-based operating systems? Fear-based operating systems go back to these sort of 1 or 2 moments in your life. Let's call them moments of change. So you basically have to ask yourself the question, why am I doing what I'm doing now? What motivated me to be in the position I'm in today? You know, and I talk with experts all over the world, top 1% of their game. You can basically trace back why they're doing what they're doing to 1 or 2 moments in their life that gave them the conviction to move forward. Honestly, the majority of these people that I speak to, that moment in their life was not necessarily around passion and excitement. It was actually around fear. It's a rebellion. It's, I don't want to go to university, so I'm going to become my own boss. Okay? That's an example. The other might be, I was dead broke, bankrupt. I had to realize that what I was doing was not working, and I never want to be in that position again. And therefore, time to make a change. And so, boom, sort of like a divine intervention happens in your life, and you go, that's it. No more. I'm done. I'm desperate. You know, when your heart is in that place, you become very receptive to change, obviously, because you're desperate and you're like, I wasn't made for this, basically. And so you move to a place of, well, something's got to change. So you take this and go, that's it, this is my new fuel. And so with this fuel, I will go and change. And then you start moving on the exterior plane, which is pulling books off the shelf, getting an MBA, changing the way you do business, you fire everybody, you sell your business, whatever it may be. And it's through that moment of change, fear, that motivates you to move about life. I've seen this fuel carry somebody over for a decade, maybe even 15, 20 years sometimes, maybe even their whole life. I propose that if you want to make real generational wealth, if you're an expert and you want to navigate it in a way that isn't fear-based, you have to let go of that fear-based operating system. So the reason why I think unlearn is the first thing you need to do is you need to recognize all of these dogmas, these doctrines, these best practices, these experiences that you've had in your life. Recognize them as useful and helpful, but recognize the root of them. They were all centered around a fear-based moment of change in your life that you needed to change. You basically have to recognize that. So I guess what I'd want you to do is like literally take a notepad and write down, like right now, do this. Just like take a notepad and write, write down those moments of change, right? Like when I was 15, this happened, or when I was 30, this happened, and just find some of the most traumatic things where you said enough's enough, something's got to change. You see this all the time. Like there's a gal I really respect. She's on Shark Tank. Her name's Barbara Corcoran. She says that she had like some moments in her life where her boss or ex-boyfriend or something said you'll never be successful or you're dumb or something, and she basically went on a mission to prove him wrong, and she did. What's that? That's using that fuel to fuel her in life. Now, was she very successful because of it? Yes. Is that something that you need to demonize and cast away entirely? No. You just need to recognize that your fuel was based off of fear. The thing that you want to create that's holistic, though, should not be a fuel-based operating system. It should be one of abundance in life, in my judgment. So with Barbara, I would say be thankful for that moment. However, I'm personally more in the business of bringing about holistic, redemptive work in people's lives, as opposed to just how to be monetarily successful based off of fear-based operating systems. That's like a half healing, or like it's not a holistic healing of the person, right? So I believe true wealth is coming from faith and coming from impact, and not just motivating moving around the exterior plane, right? So that's the first thing, is you got to unlearn, okay? Now the reason why I want to unlearn is it sets you up to recognize that most of your life was built off of fear-based operating systems. You need to be grateful for them, thank them, move on, and go, what's this new operating system I need to thrive under? And the way that this looks in terms of thinking, the sort of like second component of unlearn, you basically need to also ditch that stuff. So if everything that you've built in terms of your life and business and the success you've had was based off of a fear-based operating system, then that means that the way you think is based off of a presupposition that doesn't ultimately serve the full healing of oneself, okay? So if that didn't make sense, you can pause this, go back and watch it again. I'm going to try not to repeat myself here. I'm basically uncovering the roof of your worldview, going, this isn't going to be helpful moving forward. This might be serving you up till now, but it's not going to serve you moving forward. You need to pull on new operating systems, okay? So you need to question all of your decisions and go, was every single decision that I've made up from that point to now based off of my fear around this thing that I don't want to happen again? If so, I know that it was valuable to get me to where I am now, but I will not make decisions moving forward to serve this old fear-based self. I'm just going to address it, okay? So that's basically the thinking skill, is questioning every single decision you've ever made, and therefore questioning every decision you need to make moving forward. Why? Because the other 6 points that I'm going to make here, you need to be receptive and open to accepting them. If you don't go through this unlearn phase, you will bring clogged, dirty energy, fear-based operating system into this. And as you go deeper and deeper and deeper into these certain containers that I propose, what it'll do is it'll contaminate these things and you'll make stupid decisions, okay? So it's just important to address it now. So that's the first thing. Unlearn. Ditch all these old frameworks. Ditch all these old things. Realize they were based in a fear-based operating system. Instead, I would propose you move to a value-based operating system. Go back to those moments of change in your life where you said enough's enough, right? You can recognize that as fuel, fear-based fuel that moves you into success in life, or you can look at that as divine intervention to go, you are valuable, you're made for something more, and therefore you're actually on mission. So if you move from a fear-based operating system to a value-based operating system, you see yourself as intrinsically valuable, because in that moment of change, somebody somewhere who loves you deeply said, I've got a better plan for you, and I'm going to move into your life and infiltrate. And you can take that as, okay, everything's based off of fear, or it's I'm valuable in some way, therefore I can communicate value to the marketplace, therefore I don't need to move about life through scarcity and fear. I can move about life through abundance, because ultimately that moment of change in my life was a moment of value, where it was an intervention to go, no, there's this different story you're gonna live out. Okay, so it teases out this idea of a value-based operating system that we'll build on. Okay, number 2, the second sort of container that we'll live under is something called discover. So first unlearn thinking, right? Now discover. The discover process is the skill around that is pricing. Okay. So yeah, we're going to get really practical here, like pricing, like how to price your services. Okay. So after you've unlearned, and again, you don't move away from that. You will engage in all of these things as well. But just thinking about it linearly for a second, as soon as you move to discover, you'll be learning basically how to price yourself. Okay. So I'm going to introduce something called true value pricing. This is essentially charging what you're worth. Okay. So up till now, if you are an entrepreneur, or you maybe like you've monetized your expertise in some way through a job or something, I don't know. There's been a dollar amount attached to your value and your skill set. Okay. And I would argue, just because I've seen this like probably thousands of times up till now, at this point, is that everybody is criminally undercharging. Again, I'm presupposing that you're an expert and you have massive life experience. If you're inexperienced with these things, maybe you aren't undercharging. But I see people who are the best in the world at what they do, and their services and their products, they're just criminally underpriced. There's a reason for that, right? Because they can't advocate for themselves. They don't think that the market can actually pay what they're worth. So true value-based pricing is this, okay? It's operating under the basic assumption that every human life is intrinsically valuable. Building on that premise is that because you lived through that moment of change in your life, that divine intervention, it means that you are infinitely valuable. Therefore, once you move into mastery over a craft or becoming an expert, you therefore become priceless. So the pain around making money actually becomes, how can an infinitely priceless, eternally valuable human being intersect themselves with the market? The chasm between your value and what somebody will pay for that value is too big. That's the issue with pricing. So given that, you'll see like masters of the craft and experts go, will somebody really pay me $3,000 to learn this thing that I've done? That's a telltale sign, and you've probably felt that yourself. Telltale sign of criminally undercharging for your expertise. You basically are bowing the knee to the race to the bottom with what the market will pay, and you're thinking too much like a consumer, and you need to think of yourself more like a master of your craft. Like Banksy, like the artist who is willing to sell their art, one of one art, for millions of dollars and then shred it in the middle of everybody, and then it becomes more valuable. You know, Banksy knows his value, basically, okay? Anyways, the issue with this whole discovering pricing thing is you need conviction around your infinite and eternal value, and you need to conceptualize how the marketplace will rise up to your value, basically, right? So thinking of this, sorry, my computer died, or it's going to die. Thinking about this, I want you to sort of write down and conceptualize what your value is, okay? So let's just operate under the basic assumption that you are eternally and infinitely valuable, okay? That you have that conviction and that your craftsmanship has been developed to a place where you actually can't put a price on it, okay? Let's start there. You need to now stare that in the face and go, okay, what is my true value pricing going to be? So this is where you spend some time going, I need to attach a dollar amount or something to my skill set, okay? So you're basically going to be selling one of two things, services or products, okay? Products could be information products, digital products as well, okay? But I recommend strongly, if you're an expert and you want to go through the science of business, right? I recommend strongly that you do the opposite approach of what most people tell you to do, which they'll tell you like build an audience, sell ebooks, give away things for free, blah, 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 blah. Do the exact opposite. You're somebody of infinite worth, eternal value, that needs to be advocated for, and all you need to do is think of a product or a service that you can offer people that you think somebody won't pay, but you know it advocates for your value, okay? Now, whatever price you put on this thing will be inexpensive because we've just determined that you are of infinite worth. So to shrink yourself down to a price feels inauthentic, actually. However, we need to be realistic with, again, this is the science of business. We need to be realistic about the intersection of your value and then the market, okay? But we need to shoot from the hip a little bit here. Whatever price you're thinking of for your product or service or what you can offer somebody, just like double it or triple it, because you really need to live in the fact that you're infinitely valuable and the market needs to rise to you, okay? So you will come up with some sort of price, like just a very expensive dollar amount, and some sort of product or service that is linked to your craft or something. So this is like doing the work for somebody, making a product for somebody, or like teaching them something, okay? Like consulting or mentoring, whatever it may be. You put a dollar amount on this thing and a little bit of a sentence around what you think the thing is, okay? So do that. I want you to like write that down on your notepad. And then I want you to make a one-shot kill move here, which is how can you fulfill on this promise that you're saying here with the least amount of work possible? So instead of doing more, you do less. And as you do less, I want you to do the other thing, which is to charge more for it. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you've like, okay, Blake, I've got this written down. I am going to charge $4,000 to teach somebody how to make these ceramic cups that my company makes. And I think that's way too expensive. And what I'll do is I'll create curriculum, and then I'll send them the cups, and I'll send them the clay. Maybe they come in person, and maybe it's one-on-one, et cetera, et cetera. You want to actually do something more like this, which is, okay, maybe I can charge like $18,000 for one cup, and I just send it to them. Or you say, maybe I can charge like $8,000 to teach somebody how to do what I do, but I don't develop curriculum. They just come to my house one time and we do it. And that's it. That's all they get. Basically, charging the most amount for the least amount of work, what it does is it exposes your expertise. You're going to want to get in the way, okay? You're going to want to get in the way of the work. Now, what is that move? That's you essentially saying that your value is based on what you do. But if you are intrinsically valuable, not because of what you do, but because of who you are, based off of this moment of change that you had during the unlearn phase, you actually see that your value is deeper than what you do. So it goes against the principle of building a business around doing things. There's a theological bent on this as well. One of the biggest questions in most of, I guess, theological camps is, how is one made right with God? And the conversation around this is generally speaking around how one is justified. And so there are some camps who say that you earn your way by your works. There are some camps who say that you don't earn your way, it's by faith alone. And so this controversy around your worth and earning your way to something and someone who's eternally valuable, the conversation is always centered around your work. I happen to fundamentally believe that our Creator has done the work on our behalf and infuses that righteousness and justification into our lives, and we cooperate lovingly with his life that he has for us. And we recognize that we are not justified by what we bring to the table in all this. We are not intrinsically justified that way. So because of that fundamental worldview that I hold, I don't feel the burden to justify myself by what I do, right? Because I'm already initially justified through heaven coming down to earth and justifying things for me, right? So because of that operating system that I have, I can very boldly proclaim that you don't have to be justified based off of what you do. You are justified on basically your value in and of itself, okay, of who you are. So this move of charge the most amount for the least amount of work questions that presuppositional worldview that you might hold. You'll start to see that your value is, look at me, look at me, look at me, I can do all these things. But reality, if you are a person of depth and expertise, right, you know that if you send a $10,000 invoice, $1 is, you've seen that meme, right? $1 is like the nail and hammer, right, to fix the thing. 9,999 is knowing which nail and hammer to use, right, or where it goes. That's what I'm trying to get at. A true expert, one of value and depth like yourself, has the know-how on how to do the thing with less effort, right? So you want to advocate for that, all right? So that's discover, that's pricing. You're going to get some sort of back-of-the-napkin thing dialed in there. Now, after you've done that, unlearned, the unlearning process, how to think through things, after you've discovered and you've developed a pricing model that makes sense, the next container that you'll move through that I would propose in terms of the science of business, assuming this is scientific and less artistic, and assuming that you are an expert, and assuming this is a 5-year journey into generational wealth that you'll build for yourself based off your expertise, the third thing I would say is launch. Now, when you hear the word launch, you think like launching a business, or like maybe you're in the internet marketing space and it's like you're doing a product launch or something. It's not really it. Launch and the hard business skill set that is attached to launch, there are two: offer and sales. Okay? So in the launch phase, you basically want to live in this phase for as little amount of time as possible. The unlearn phase, you're constantly unlearning. Always, always, always questioning, right? Always unlearning, always detaching yourself from all these stupid attachments we have as human beings, right? And that's always going to happen. The discover phase, you're always discovering your pricing. You're always raising your pricing. You're always doing less. You're always charging more. It's something you always come back to, okay? With launch, as soon as you get clarity over these unlearn and discover things, launch phase needs to be as quick as possible. If you're in the launch phase for an hour, then that's great. If you're in the launch phase for months, then that's horrible. You've missed the whole point. Why do I say this? Launch is you have to sell something really expensive, not a lot of work, to one person. And by sell something, I mean money in the bank. Okay? What is this going to do? It's going to expose, like a tea bag in hot water, how bad you are at business. So what are you bad at? You're basically, what are you good at? You're really good at the work. You're a master at your craft, right? Why can't you just do that? Well, you'll start to realize that you suck at sales and you suck at crafting an offer. and you suck at articulating your value. You suck at advocating for yourself, right? You suck at marketing. And this is where most experts go astray. They go buy like stupid courses or something from some marketer who's marketing to marketers, and they're going to teach you what they just did to you. And they think some like three-dimensional person like yourself who's an expert at their craft goes and buys that thing as a cheap commodity and applies it to their skill set. It's going to feel like a stupid barnacle on a boat that doesn't feel right. Yeah, that's dumb. You don't need to like learn business, basically. We just need to leverage your skill set, get this, your operating system that got you to the place that you are now with your expertise and your mastery. So like, you didn't read a business book or anything like this in order to become a master of your craft. You just did the work and you were passionate about it, right? And you did it over and over again. You got some help for sure. But to become the top 1% in the world at what you do, you're wired differently and you're passionate. And you have a unique operating system and a makeup about you that's one of one. And I would leverage that part of your brain, your heart, your will to move through the launch phase as opposed to take on some other stupid external framework that's not truly going to serve you. You would just have to unlearn it again. So yeah, launch, offer, and sales. You're going to realize how much you suck at all this stuff. Here's what you got to do. Whatever price this is that you did in the discover phase, all this, you're going to do something called minimal viable everything. By that, I mean minimal viable marketing, minimal viable offer, minimal viable sales, minimal viable fulfillment. Fulfillment basically just means what we talked about before, like how are you going to fulfill on this promise of this thing that you sold, right? Minimal viable everything. So don't get in the way of this. Don't go and say, okay, cool, Blake, I hear you. I'm going to go build a website now and communicate my value that way. I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to go create a Twitter following, and I'm going to create an audience, and I'm going to monetize it later. And as soon as I get 1,000 followers, I can monetize that. And just forget all that stuff. That's stupid. What you should do instead is do minimal viable everything. The point of this is to show you how much you suck at sales and marketing. And as you move through that, you're going to want to get in the way and create all these digital assets and say more and undercut yourself. Again, it's hot water and tea. The hot water of the tea bag, it shows the tea, right? You need to be able to communicate your value in the minimal viable, fastest way possible. I mean, if you got to knock on your neighbor's door to sell the thing, do it. But do not go and use leverage digital mechanisms in order to fulfill on this thing, okay? Just go do it. Just go sell it. Minimal viable everything. If you've got a list of 600 people that you've built up over the course of 30 years, you might even want to say, oh, well, there's my list, there's my audience. I'm going to make a minimal viable website. I'm going to email that list into a funnel, and I'm going to try to sell them over the phone to this thing that doesn't exist, et cetera, et cetera. Look at me, Blake, am I doing it right? No. Minimal viable everything. I want you to like go through your cell phone and sell it to somebody. Like guerrilla marketing, boots on the ground, and minimal viable, okay? Do not pull any of the digital mechanisms quite yet, all right? Because we need to expose how bad you are at sales and marketing, okay? Now, if you fall on your face and fail through this process, it'll give you new articulation for your messaging, new articulation for the sales pitch, new articulation for the offer. If what you're trying to sell to the market isn't working, but they give you the feedback of why it's not working, you can change the offer and all this stuff to fit it to the market. So that's where the science of business comes in, is that if you just say I'm super awesome and people have to buy my stuff, that's more the art of business, okay? And there's a place for that. But this is the science of business video. And this science of business thing, you kind of need to listen to the market. So as you go and try to sell this thing, they might say, oh, that's not that cool. What I would really like is this thing. And then you go, oh, cool. All right, keep that in mind. You talk to the next person. What I really like is this thing. Oh, and you start changing the pitch to what they really want, right? And as long as it doesn't compromise on your true value, that's great. You know, you shot in the right direction, you just weren't right on, you know? So it's important to have minimal viable everything, and it's very important to sell it before it exists. So as you talk to people and sell this thing for a very high price, you're going to get money and handshake and say this is good, and then you're going to go offer or build this. You're not going to build some huge curriculum or something stupid and say we're going to go through this, because you need to sell something that the market wants. Basically, you go sell this thing, somebody buys it, and then you offer it, right? Or I'm sorry, and then you fulfill on it. This is more than just building the plane as you're flying. This is selling the plane that doesn't exist. That's what the launch phase is, okay? Now, I know what you might be thinking is, well, Blake, this is like kind of cutthroat and ruthless, and I don't know if I can do that, and what if they don't say yes, or where am I going to find these people, all this stuff. You know, I've developed quite a bit of impatience for questions like that, because the people I talk to, and I hope that you are like masters of their craft. Like, if you're the best of the best and the best of the world at this one particular subject matter, and you know it, and you're asking questions like, who's going to pay this small amount of money for this thing that doesn't exist, it exposes your real self of lack of belief in yourself. And this is most likely why you're not an entrepreneur, basically, or why you're not making like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars as an entrepreneur, is because you are undercutting yourself. You know, I've seen people who've sold like over $30 million of products who don't get this. And as soon as they do, they realize, oh, I could have sold $300 million worth of products if I just like slowed down and did this. You know, so I'm trying to save you a lot of time and money, okay? So that's it. Minimal viable everything. Don't go monster out some stupid website or campaign. Your basically complexity, anywhere you see complexity, it reveals that you are in pain. Because simplicity is addressing discomfort, and complexity is soothing pain. Anytime somebody says, oh, this thing is really hard, it should be followed up with, I'm going to keep it simple. Or if anybody says, oh, this is really hard, and they look at what they're building and it's complex, you can kind of just say, no, it's actually pretty easy. You're just making it complex, right? So keep it simple, live in the pain, sell a really expensive thing to one person, and do that. Now, you might even be thinking, well, I don't want to build that business. So what, I just have to do that over and over again, and now I can quit my job, or now I can sell 300 million as opposed to 30 million. No, what we're building in this sort of 7-phase container is not something that you are going to scale. This is just the journey that you got to go on in order to uncover your true value, so that you can build something with ultimate leverage. Okay, the fourth thing is action. And the business skill behind action is message. So the previous one, the message was minimal viable. You were like basically guessing what your message was, and like what it is that you're trying to do and how you sell it. Okay. In the action phase, you know what you need to sell, and you just need to articulate it. Okay. So, okay, the unlearn phase, you are constantly engaging in it. All right. The discover phase, you're constantly engaging with it. The launch phase, you are living in this for like as little time as possible. And anytime you start something new or advocate for more pricing, all this, you'll go back to the launch phase, and you just want to live in that for as short as possible and then move on. With the action phase, this is a phase where it's safe to say that this could be like your business for the next couple of years, the action phase. It's not the final form, but it's the 1 to 2 years or so of seasonality of your business, where you live in there, and I just want to make sure my computer doesn't die. You live in there and start building something of great worth. Okay. Now, I'm going to say that this action phase, where you're getting the message right, is historically what we've called in our ecosystem with our clients that we work with is called the true value phase. However, all 7 of these things are the true value phase. But historically, this was really where the work was done, right? So let's just presuppose that this action phase is about 1 to 2 years. Okay? What do you need to do during this phase? Well, you should have 1 or 2 or 3 people that you've worked with in the launch phase. You know, the only requirement is 1 person. With the action phase, you just like put more people into your thing. So if you're selling ceramic pots, like you sell more. If you're selling digital products, you sell more. If you're selling services, you sell more. All of these things for not a lower price, but the same or higher price in this, okay? Now you're going to do waves of marketing in order to get people into this thing or to sell this one thing that you just sold during the launch phase. What are you doing in that phase? Well, you're refining and articulating your message that produces a resonant frequency between your true value and your audience. That's essentially what you're going to be doing, okay? Now, this true value phase, 1 to 2 years, basically you can get this thing humming to make a lot of money. Like I've seen people in the true value phase in the action phase do this for 2 years and make like millions of dollars, basically. They go, okay, sweet, I've got my business, thanks. I would argue that you're just getting started. The point of the true value action phase, where you get the messaging right, is R&D, research and development. So the only priority during this action phase is to keep cash flow alive, get more people in, okay? Follow me here. Get more people into this thing. It's not to put away money to buy a house. It's not to put away money to put in your 401k. It's not to build generational wealth quite yet. What you're doing is you have a 1 to 2 year R&D, phase basically, where you're getting more people in. You're saving that cash to buy you time to discover what the message is that comes from this engagement. So let's say you spend a year or two selling like some sort of engagement where people are working with you as a consultant or something. Let's just use that as an example. You're just gonna like do the minimum viable of getting people in to like pay your bills for the next few months and just like keep doing that over and over again. And at this point you should be doing this full time. You shouldn't be like working at some other job or something. Your job is not to put 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people into this or sell 1 million ceramic pots or anything like this. It's just to keep the lights on for R&D. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to spend the next 1 to 2 years observing what's going on. So you're going to basically be curious about where your true value is. You thought it was in this, this, and this thing that you laid out for them when they were in, but a year later you realize that the real value is actually in this other thing that you're offering. You didn't even see it. So the thing about experts is they don't know what they're an expert at. They think they know, but they really don't. It's usually the underlying operating system within you that got you to become an expert is what people want to see. And you can't show that to the world unless you put yourself in a container where you're charging the most amount for the least amount of work, so that you are operating purely off of your intuition and kind of showing things in real time, as opposed to you've got it all together and you're just like teaching something that you did 10 years ago or something like this. You kind of want to live on full display and expose yourself for who you are and get people to see and appreciate how you think through things and how you make that ceramic pot or whatever it may be, right? And put that on full display. Charge a lot for it, least amount of work, and be really close to the work. So this is kind of where people go astray, is they go here and then they go, okay, I'm going to go scale this thing. And for experts, they fall out of love with their craft. They basically start picking up business books and they try to monster out an offer and scale, et cetera, et cetera. But in this phase, the way I'd propose it is if you do it like this, you actually go deeper into the work, where you basically just keep doing the work that you're doing. And you just do it again and again and again, over and over again. You go deeper and deeper and deeper, but with other people, and you're paid for it. And in this phase, you're just doing R&D. As more problems come up, because you have not put curriculum in front of you and the clients, or because you haven't put a lot of deliverables between you and the clients, and because you're doing less, that chasm creates a space for your clients to bring you their problems from their life, and for you to meet them in a place where you're solving their problems with an intuitive sense. And so in that chasm, the true value emerges, where they are bringing themselves to the engagement, as opposed to you spoon feeding it down to them, and then they have questions about your material. That's important, right? So I look at this, sorry, all of my analogies are like theological or music or philosophy, but I look at this very similarly to, like I have a very deep interest in Eucharistic theology. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't really get a lot out of church, or I don't really get a lot out of prayer, or I don't really get a lot of engaging with the sacraments. Well, you don't bring anything to it, you know. Fulton Sheen, a fantastic sort of 20th century preacher, would say this all the time, is the reason why you don't get anything out of something that's offered to you that's holy and sacred is you don't bring anything to it. So the efficacy of the grace that you receive that's infused into your life is only determined based off of the amount of things you bring, okay? That's where I believe you can thrive in this phase, where if you just remain with a posture of restraint to these people that you've brought in for a high price, for not a lot of work, you're going to want to feel like you need to service them and do this stuff. But really you need to show unbelievable restraint and power for them to bring their problems to you. And now the market is telling you what their problems are, and then you meet them in a place that impacts them in a tremendous, tremendous way. And if you put all this stuff in between them and say, engage with this material, all they're going to do is have questions about the material, and they're not going to bring themselves to the engagement. And the value is the intersection between their problems and how you can solve it in an intuitive way, not a pre-programmed, prescriptive way. In those special moments, true value emerges, and you have to be observing of these things and record the calls and get client feedback, etc., 1 to 2 years, keep cash flow alive, use it as R&D. From that, you will have messaging to go, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is where the value is. So the value is then moved not from what you do, not even from who you are, but the value is something outside of yourself that has emerged when you brought people together and yourself, and then it sort of like pops up, okay? And it's your job to be curious about that message, keep cash flow alive, have this R&D, look at your business as a way to fund R&D in order to get that message. You know, I experienced this as well when I started mastering.com, the company that I sold a couple of years ago. It took years until a client said, oh, it's almost like you're reverse engineering the music production process. It was like a light from heaven, like that's what we're doing. And the whole program got called that, and so much excitement around that. And it at least gave us some curiosity to go, what is that we're actually doing? You know, it's stuff like this that you're looking for. It's the gold, right? So you need the scientific method in order for the art to thrive, right? That's kind of where this is going. Now, when it comes to the next phase here, after you've done this, you should have quite a bit of clarity over your message, what you do, what the true value is, what the price is, etc., etc. Now you're at a place where you want to fill this thing up and sell a lot of it and systematize things and all this. Don't do that. You have just begun to uncover your true value. What you must do instead is move to the fifth, which is people phase. Okay, the hard business skill set that you're going to attach to the people phase is traffic. Okay, so this is all about people. Obviously, the people phase is all about people. Most people think, okay, I've got it solidified. I've done this for 1 to 2 years. I think I know what our message is. I'm just going to here's our message, here's our website, here's our landing page. Let's traffic, advertising, get more people in, etc., etc., etc. You're going to want to do that, but no. That's not what you do. You actually go deeper with people. So you'll take your best clients essentially and go, okay, I'm going to go deeper with them. And what you'll do is you'll develop flexible offers to people that already are your clients, basically, that is more expensive, and you just offer that to them, basically. So instead of scaling this way, you scale that way. Instead of getting more people into this fixed thing, you go deeper with others. Why? Well, you increase lifetime value of a customer, yes. You increase profit margin, yes. More importantly, you start to go down a journey of understanding where your real true value is. And how do you find these people that want to pay you more money to go deeper? Well, the one-shot kill to this is basically people who show you the most gratitude. Gratitude shows up in 2 ways. One is by verbally attributing their thanks to you, and 2, executing on the things you told them to do. Those 2 moves are the only thing you need in order to understand where the gratitude comes from. If you find those people, move towards them and say, I want to pour into you more. Why? Because they will appreciate what you do, they'll share with everybody what you do, and they're grateful, so that means they'll execute. Now think about it. Trust to get some new person who doesn't know what you do, you basically are trying to get them to trust you and love you and be grateful for you and execute on the things you'll do, right? You already have those people in your engagement, so you just got to offer them something and go deeper, right? That's basically it. So you got to develop something called flexible offers in order to go deeper with those who are grateful for your work, okay? You can do that for a year or 6 months, or maybe only get a few of those clients or whatever it may be. in that container with the deeper clients, now you have a discovery method to go, what's happening here? From that, you shift that as your new core offer and get more people into that. So now you get rid of this minimal viable thing that you've created. You bring this really expensive, cool, awesome thing that you're developing in front and say, this is the new thing, higher price, least amount of work, tons of gratitude. This is where the true value is. Sorry, my thing died. Hopefully I'm good now. Anyways, you take like all of those people there and you have new articulation of your value with people who are super grateful for you, charge a lot for it. That becomes your core offer essentially. More importantly, now you have a way to scale deeper with people, to go deeper into your craft, the thing that you love, as opposed to just scaling a business that you may or may not like you might hate it actually. So that's what that does, right? You have a way to scale and make money this way, and it buys you more time. You get more, like I said, lifetime value of a customer, profit first, etc., etc. But again, more importantly, you get incentivized to go deeper into the craft. This, my friends, is what like Patreon wanted to do. This is what School, that platform, wanted to do. This is what Circle wanted to do, is they actually wanted true followers and audiences to follow these people who are really good at what they do, become true fans, and just have a way to go deeper and deeper and deeper. The platforms themselves won't do it. You have to have a way to function in order to offer that to people to go much, much deeper, right? That's actually what you want, is to go find the people who want to go deeper into your craft and then go deeper with them and charge for it. That's it. That now becomes your core offer, and you're constantly iterating on that. Now you have a way to make money with your clients, right? Develop flexible offers that can facilitate that, okay? However, that will become your core offer. As you do that, you most importantly, again, during this discovery phase within the people phase, the real messaging of where your value is actually pops up. You'll start to see that your value is way cooler, way deeper, and will only come from the people who are very grateful for you and going to the deeper work. They will articulate what the value is. At this point, what will happen? You'll have the value that is completely outside of yourself, that's emerging, that only comes from these deep engagements. After a couple years of working, right, to get here, that'll be it. You now can place that as the next phase, which is 6, which is mission. Now, mission is really day one. That's actually what's going on. The reason why it's here and not day one is, it's very, very important for you to put aside just your motivations, but really see what the intrinsic value outside of yourself is happening in these deeper, higher priced, high stake engagements where your expertise is on full display. Now you really can articulate your mission correctly. The business skill sets around this are twofold: operations and passion. So this is cool. In this phase is where you're gonna basically rebrand everything. So you'll take this articulation that you've discovered through the deeper engagements, and you're going to actually create a company. At this point, you could have created millions and millions of dollars, right? But if you do it this way, you don't really need like a company or a website or anything, right? That's what's cool about it. And at this point, you would basically rebrand. So you take not your value or what you offer, your services, but you'll take this thing outside of yourself and say, this is what we're all about. This is our mission. This is where you go big on like your domain name, your branding. In our company, we have somebody who handles all this for you once you get here. And that's essentially it. And you go, okay, we're actually on a mission here. And then this is your big grand mission, and it's huge, right? And it's not something that you could articulate from day one. It has to be discovered through this process, right? It's a movement through branding and marketing, okay? The skill sets around this are operations and passion, okay? So it requires a lot of operational infrastructure to build this thing, right? So redesigning your website, all this stuff, that's where you go maximalist. So no more minimal viable stuff. You know what you're on, the journey you're on, the mission you're creating. You wouldn't have ever been able to come up with it in the beginning. You need to go through this process in order to uncover what your mission really was. Once that's presented to you, you go, the bottleneck is not me anymore. It's not my expertise. It's this thing, it's this domain that I've submitted my life to. It's a unique combination of a few things that we've discovered together with my deepest clients and myself to go, there's this thing that we're attributing our expertise to. like for me practically, like maybe like the company like I mentioned before that I sold, which is like music school re-engineered, or like with the company I have now at college, it's the university for entrepreneurs, right? It's this like deeper mission. I didn't just pull that out of thin air. That was like years and years and years of devotion to the craft, right? For you, it could be like, I don't know, creating a movement of painters around the world, or facilitating the greatest wealth transfer in the history. I'm just like trying to think of like the missions that we have inside of our ecosystem. Yeah, that's basically it. And so now you're in a place where you're passionate about the mission instead of just scaling some product. Now you're passionate about the mission, and you brand it nicely and you put it out there. And so now it's about scale. Now you have both ways to scale. Now you have this incredible core offer that you need to go to the market with, right? And develop the passion around that. That's where you get the operational complexity all dialed in to put more people into this thing that you have that's beautiful and wonderful and it has tons of true value. And you have a way to do flexible offers that are around, this mission, okay? Now, if you show up to the marketplace, whether it's paid advertising, organic advertising, partnerships, et cetera, you're not selling a product or service to people anymore. You're selling a vision and a mission. That's basically what you're selling. That will attract all of your employees. That'll attract all of your clients. That'll attract all of your partnerships. And that's where the leverage is. So instead of building from the ground up, you can lead with the mission and go, this is what we're all about. And you can find companies that you can start acquiring. So this is like where the generational wealth comes in. As once you have the mission, you can start maybe acquiring companies or partnering with people or moving very quickly, because you'll see that there's adjacent companies or adjacent people that believe in this mission, and you can partner with them and acquire companies and really scale nicely there. That's where the fun, I believe, begins. It's years and years and years of iteration to get to that point, right? So you're basically submitting yourself to a movement. And if you have a movement and a vision and a mission, I would argue that you can just have that with a viable business model, and you can go towards partnerships and deals and agreements to now start building equity value within your company. So that would be like the sixth thing. And then the last would be mastery. So oddly enough, the attaching business skill that I propose for mastery is love. So what is mastery, right? It's doing one thing 1,000 times, not doing 1,000 things one time, right? There's that whole like quote around Bruce Lee or somebody, like a kick, like mastering a kick, like you do, I'm probably botching this, but you do that one kick 1,000 times. It's putting in your 10,000 hours. You're becoming a master, right? At each one of these phases, you are becoming a master at certain things. The first being the craft. The next being business. The next being relationships and partnerships, right? And each one of those things, you're incentivized in this model, if you will, to go deeper into your craft, deeper into your operating system that was not based off of fear, but one of value, okay? You're submitting yourself to this greater mission. The burden of that is huge, and you get to play a part of it and participate in that. But you being the expert have developed such an overdeveloped skill set in your brain and your heart and your will that got you so good at this thing, that is your craft. You're going to use that in each one of these containers to solve business solutions. You know what I mean? So now mastery is actually the thing that you're going to develop within these containers. Again, mastery is not something you move away from. It's not the last step necessarily. It's a holistic picture, right? And then love. This is what it's all about, right? I think it should be implied that you go on this journey because you love what you do. So why put it last? Well, I believe it's because love never fails. It is the everlasting thing. It never goes away. It's really what remains with everything we do, right? So it's important to recognize that you can go through this entire journey and realize that the thing that's always been there has been love. Love for the craft, love for your passion, love for the mission, all this stuff, right? That's the thing to focus on. In the end, that's all really you've been focusing on. Now, I'll make more of a theological move. There's a brilliant Protestant preacher called Jonathan Edwards, turn of the 20th century. the Great Awakening, the revival movement here. He's a true Puritan. He wrote about something called freedom of the will. And this is essentially, I won't bore you with the theology of all this, but he argued that the will always do what it wills, and obviously, and how that's done is by always submitting to, in the moment, what you love. So if you're faced with a decision, you will say yes to whatever decision you're about to make based out of what you love in the moment, right? In other words, you will always do what you love. So the most leveraged thing to do to navigate these spaces is to be so in touch with what you love or who you love and make decisions based off of that. In this mastery phase, you have an incredibly leveraged business. You have tons of equity value. At this point, you're managing cash flow, people, mission, etc., etc. You're going to want to look for leverage. You need to be so in touch with what you love, with who loves you, and I would argue square up to the idea that you have an eternal creator who loves you, who transcends a lot of this business framework stuff. And if you know how loved you are by him, you will really then truly be transcending a lot of these other loves, like selfish desire, wealth creation. You know, all these things are good in and of themselves, right? The wealth creation and the mission of the movement. However, if it's not attached to anything, I would argue, that's based in objectivity and eternal greatness and value, out of pure love and intention towards you, then it may have just been all for you. Yet if you realize that you're loved outside of what you're building and you're loved deep down to the core, then you realize that you'll be able to take great risks and do amazing things and build a great company. So the conversations in this container, and we have this in our company all the time, 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs discussing together. What are we discussing? The questions that we're always asking ourselves is, well, what do you love? And we're questioning if that love is pure. Is it selfish? Is it selfless? Where's it coming from? As soon as we understand what that is, we can make very leveraged decisions on how to operate our businesses. And that's essentially it. So there you go. That's sort of the 7 containers of the science of business, with business skills attached to it. This is literally our core principles for the company that we have. We take people on a journey for, could be 5 years, could be 1 year, depends on the execution and the gratitude. This is what we believe the science of business is, to build generational wealth through expert-centered entrepreneurship on a journey that is combined with art and science. This is sort of the science piece. So I'll piece together part 2 and part 1 into one video. Drop it. See you in the next one.